Multiple sources tell CBS News National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his deputy will leave their positions as soon as today, but Waltz isn't leaving the administration altogether. President Trump took to his Truth Social app to announce he, quote, will be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. Waltz started the Signal group chat last month that included operational plans for a U.S. strike in Yemen. In that chat were the president's top advisors, Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Waltz admitted to mistakenly adding Jeffrey Goldberg to the group chat. Goldberg went on to publish an account of the exchange, causing a back and forth between The Atlantic and the administration regarding the information disclosed. And it prompted backlash against the White House over the methods it uses to conduct sensitive conversations. It's unclear if that is the reason behind Waltz's departure, but CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is here to tell us what he knows. Ed?
Lindsay, just a few moments ago, the president announcing, making it official, what Jennifer Jacobs of CBS News had reported earlier today, that Mike Waltz is out as National Security Advisor and will be nominated to serve as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. That requires Senate confirmation, but the White House seems to think he'll be able to get through, given that Republicans control the Senate. He says Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first, and I know he'll do the same in his new role in the interim. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is going to serve as National Security Advisor. Waltz, as you mentioned, was the one that somehow inadvertently put Jeffrey Goldberg in that Signal group chat, exposing the fact that top national security and intelligence officials were using a commercially available app to discuss sensitive military operations before they occurred, setting off a round of criticism and scrutiny of Waltz. In addition to that, in recent weeks, there have been conservative or MAGA activists clamoring to have Waltz and his team removed from the National Security Agency, claiming that they are insufficiently pro-Trump, represent the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party that used to reign when George W. Bush was president and Dick Cheney was vice president and the war in Iraq was raging. Waltz has also been known to clash with some in the administration, both here in the West Wing and across the government, as his job has been to coordinate national security, intelligence, and foreign policy and deliver it to the president on a regular basis. And while the news had broken earlier today, and Waltz even made an appearance here on the North Lawn on another network, the word came that he was being ousted. And as is tradition, or as usually happens, the president makes it official on his social media platform by announcing the ouster and announcing who the successor is. And in this case, it's the Secretary of State.
Secretary of State's got a lot of plates in the air. How will he juggle all this?
So he's Secretary of State. He's dissolving and merging USAID into the State Department. He's also the acting archivist of the United States because he had ousted the sitting archivist and has put Rubio in charge titularly. There's someone else running it day to day. And now he's going to serve as National Security Advisor. There is precedence for this. Henry Kissinger did it from 1973 to 1975 for Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. That would be the model, amassing an incredible amount of power and influence over foreign policy and national security matters. In that era, it was the end of the Vietnam War. In this era, it's dealing now with the situation between Russia and Ukraine, the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, talks with Iran that continue, concerns about, most recently just this week, India and Pakistan feuding over the situation in Kashmir. I mean, everything crosses the desk of the National Security Advisor, and it puts you in proximity to the president, to the vice president, to the chief of staff, and gives you far more face time and access to a president, which is ultimately what people in an administration are seeking. So Rubio now very quickly becoming an incredibly influential and powerful figure in this administration. And we should point out, just yesterday, gave a pretty vociferous defense of the president in that epic 2-hour, 8-minute cabinet meeting, sitting there and defending the administration's 102-day record, domestically and internationally, suggesting the president's doing a lot to fulfill his campaign promises and reshape the world. So we'll see in the coming days how that adjustment goes for Rubio, and we'll see ultimately whether Waltz can pass the Senate confirmation process and become UN ambassador probably by the fall, at least, when the UN General Assembly meets. And the other thing with this job, while it sounds like a promotion or at least gives him a landing spot, this administration has signaled from the start that they didn't necessarily consider the United Nations a serious organization or a job that they had to worry that much about. So it's a landing spot for Waltz, but it is in essence being put out to pasture because this, at least so far, is not seen as a priority for this president who's at the UN, given that he's trying to make so many changes in foreign policy unilaterally and really shake up the global order.
What can you tell us about this Ukraine deal? And instead of don't call it a comeback, don't call it a minerals deal.
They're calling it in the U.S.-Ukraine Investment Fund. And the plan is that ultimately, once the conflict between Russia and Ukraine ends, the United States will help Ukraine find a way to make money off of its natural resources, which may include all sorts of minerals, but also oil and natural gas should it be there. How long would that take? What exactly is there? Who's willing to make those investments? What private company wants to go in and do that prospecting? All of that to be determined in the future. But both the U.S. and the Ukrainians saying this is a 50-50 partnership. And notably, President Zelensky signaled that it's the direct result of the conversation he had last weekend with President Trump at the funeral for Pope Francis. So that incredible image of the two of them sitting in essentially folding chairs in St. Peter's Basilica wasn't just a photo op. It led to the final signing of this agreement, something the administration had been seeking from the start. It lacks an explicit security agreement for Ukraine. But the administration has said today, through Treasury officials especially, by signing this, it signals that President Trump himself now is personally invested in making sure that Ukraine and Russia end that war and that Ukraine is able to rebuild its economy.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you.